hello, my favorite people, everyone out there. Let me see, who do we have on our stream today? Can everyone see me? I see here we have a comment. Good afternoon, 12 Bravo, welcome, welcome. Atlanta, welcome here. Michigan here, USA, USA. Everybody is excited. Let me see. Привет. We have Emil Ivanov says привет. Привет is hello in Russian. I love it. We have 12 Bravo again. Hi, Elena. Hi, 12 Bravo. We have Victor. Oganyanov. Hi, Victor. Yes. Hello. Everyone there from Ukraine. I mean, I can read Ukrainian too, guys. Don't be shy. Let's see. I have a great crowd. Oh, I love it. Let's see if there is anybody watching us on Facebook. Oh boy, how do we do that? Let's see. I guess the guys on Facebook will have to join us on YouTube. Oh, I see. Victor, you're on Facebook. I'm hoping that these both comments are merging. So if you guys don't see us talking on Facebook, we should be streaming to both Facebook and YouTube. Join us on YouTube. I read comments, hopefully on both, but let's see what countries we have. It's 1 p.m. in Michigan, United States. What time of the day you guys have? What countries are you watching from? Let's see Victor again. Washington, D.C. is here too. Great, Victor. Welcome. Let me see. Oganjanov in Russian. Excellent. We got Jessica McFarlane. Hey, Jessica. Good morning and happy day from New Zealand. Yay, love New Zealand. New Zealand. Love it, love it. Let's see who we have. We have Arjen, I think it's Arjen or Arjen Boss. Hi from Holland. Do you guys say Rado Bra or is this Norwegian? I worked with Dutch people, so I should be able to strike a couple of sentences here and there in Dutch and Norwegian as well. Do we have anyone from Norway? If we do, I don't know what time you guys have. Don't be shy. Georgia, 12 Bravo, Georgia, USA. Wow, we have Greece in the house. I love it. I love it. Dispina Papadopoulos. Is it Kalimera or Kalispera? Is it good morning or good evening there? You see, guys, I worked in my career with a lot of people from pretty much around the globe. So I love you all, and all of the countries that you are writing from is probably the countries that I worked with, the people from those countries, and I met them, and I love all of them. Worked with Greeks too, so I love it. I love it. Should I say Yasu Tikanis Polikala? That's what it would be. Despina, right? In Greece. How are you doing? Doing great. Something along these lines. So I'm going to practice my languages with you guys. Just don't pressure German too much. I mean, seriously. Watching from Ireland, Willie Harding. I love it. How is Ireland? I think Russian President Medvedev made some predictions about Ireland for the year 2023. Bravo says, awesome. We have Pius Bell, I think Holland. Forgive me, guys, if I don't pronounce your names correctly. I am trying my best. Pius Bell, Holland, welcome, welcome. We've got it. Hello, I'm watching from France. Latina, welcome. I remember you have been on some of the other lives that we did, and you did put some great comments for us to discuss. I love it. Welcome, France. Welcome. Okay, guys, let's get started. I think I got everyone who decided to make a quick comment where you're watching from. Here we have Niagara Falls, Ontario. Oh, I love it. I've been there. It's gorgeous. How is the falls, guys? I think last time we were there, they said that they only work within like 25% capacity. I was like totally spellbounded. I said, I cannot even imagine what it'd be like if they were working up to 100% capacity. The sound, the power, the water is just, wow. It was pretty scary to go right under the Niagara Falls. You know, like when you put this yellow jacket that protects you from all the splatter of the water. And of course, I did not brave it to do the little ship trip right there in the middle of the waterfalls. I thought that would be pretty scary. Anybody who is brave enough to do that, kudos to you. Oh my Lord, we have Portugal. I love it watching from Portugal. Hi, JP. Outeiro, JP Outeiro. I hope Otetio. Guys, forgive me if I mispronounce your names. I'm trying my best. Here we have Latina saying thank you. Okay, guys, let's start it. What do we have going on? Does everybody know about the Davos meeting of the power and the rich, hungry, non-elected people who fancy themselves the rulers of the world, right? That's what Elon Musk said, that we have those elites gathering in Davos deciding the fate of the universe every time. And he said, who made them the boss of the universe? So I thought, okay, Elon, keep going. I think you're on the right track here, dude. And then let's cut off the Starlink so you could actually not have your hands be full of blood of Ukrainian people. That would be kind of nice, and we'll call it a day. But now he continues to sort of say, let's have peace in Ukraine, but still provides a Starlink that is used by Ukrainian military and Pentagon people who are helping them. And unfortunately, he's going to keep doing it, it looks like. So the war in Ukraine is going to keep going. But Davos, it was pretty cute. I thought, I watched the videos. Zelensky is walking down the street with a reporter. And I think I may have a video here to show you guys. I'm not sure if it's this one, but I'll explain. It was just a few seconds. So Zelensky is walking down the street with the reporter. And the reporter says, so what do you think that your wife feels like now that there is this war in Ukraine? And Zelensky said, like, how does she deal with that? Zelensky, oh, she feels and she deals with it just like any other Ukrainian woman. And then, of course, they show that Mrs. Zelensky, she lands in Davos on this chartered helicopter. Then there is this flight there. You know, it's a small ski resort town in Switzerland called Davos, I guess, where they gather the elites, just like to have their seminars going on, and it's very costly to attend. I think one of the human rights activists complained. He actually is the guy, what is his name? Baudin Bauer or something along those lines. And he complained that the ticket for him to attend this year was $250,000. And of course, he is the one who advocates for the arrest and freeze and expropriation of Russian assets. But he attended Davos too. And of course, Mrs. Zelensky, Zelensky's wife attended. Some people estimated some of her expenses, probably upwards of 200,000 plus minus. In other words, you could see that regular Ukrainian people boiling their soup in the street, using some pieces of wood that they can find, and live under the shelling for the last 9 years when Ukraine is bombing its own people, its own citizens. And of course, Zelensky doesn't even see it. He's totally oblivious. He thinks that his wife feels and deals with the Ukraine situation the same way as any other Ukrainian woman. Can you believe the amount of disconnect? He doesn't understand what the regular Ukrainian goes through. So let's switch. Oh, guys, by the way, Rammstein, remember? We also have Rammstein that took place, what is it, yesterday? We'll talk about that when Ukraine is asking for the tanks, the leopards. Ooh la la. I have another comment to say, watching from Portugal. We have thank you. We have JP saying hello. We have Zurich, Switzerland. I love it, Vahid. Hello to Switzerland. Excellent. Who did I miss? I am late. Hi from New York City. Yay, Frederick. Hello. Never late, right? So, guys, Rammstein, you know where they meet in Germany? I believe it's one of these NATO bases where they decide how much more weapons Ukraine's going to get. And of course, Zelensky is always begging. And I'm going to play you a video of Zelensky doing some more begging. Right
when it felt that defenders of freedom run out of weapons against it. The war started by Russia does not allow delays. And I can thank you hundreds of times, and it will be absolutely just and fair given all that we have already done. But hundreds of thank you are not hundreds of tanks. All of us can use thousands of words in discussions, but I cannot put words instead of guns that are needed against Russian artillery, or instead of the anti-aircraft missile that are needed to protect people from Russian airstrikes. And I'm truly grateful to all of you for the weapons you have provided. Every unit helps to save our people from terror, but time remains a Russian weapon. We have to speed up. Time must become.
So did you guys hear it? He wants leopards. He wants the, more weapons, leopard tanks. And of course, we know Germany has been pressured in providing the tanks. And Olaf Scholz and I think their Minister of Defense, the lady who just recently resigned, she actually ordered to stop counting and stop doing inventory of the tanks just before she resigned. And the reasoning given was that her reasoning was if she ordered inventory of the tanks, that would signal that Germany is willing to supply those Leopard tanks to Ukraine. Sounds like Germany is not willing, but the United States is pressuring. And I think, what is it? Lloyd Austin said to Germany that they have to provide Leopards, and Germany is like, no, why don't you guys, United States, provide your Abrams first, and then we will provide our Leopards after you. But the United States is like, oh no, our Abramses, they're just not made for Ukrainian soil. They just not, it's hard to maintain, and just too costly. It's just not viable for us to send our Abramses. You guys, Germans, you send your Leopards. And of course, Germans remember their past. And if you guys think about it, if somebody still doesn't understand, I think we're basically reliving the World War II history, probably World War I, then there's going to be World War II. That whole period of time is pretty much a repeat of what's going on, with just slight differences and slight different players. But I'm afraid that Germany and Poland are going to be involved in this conflict in some ways they don't want to, or maybe didn't think that they would have been. I know Poland wants to, but I'm not sure Germany is so eager. But with that said, they recently, with this Rammstein, decided to pressure, let me share my screen, Germany, because Germany said, I've seen some of their parliament members speaking out, and they said, we don't want to have German tanks on Russian soil like it was during World War II. Well, obviously, they still remember what they did, right? We remember what they did. So with I have somebody, Tom Casey Parrish. What are you talking about, dear? We're talking about tanks here. So what they did is they are creating the Oh, I see. They are going to perish with Ukraine cease to exist. Yeah, we're talking about Germany and Poland. I'm afraid that you are onto something, Tom. I am, don't ask me how I know, okay? But if somebody is intelligent enough to see this chessboard, to see what happened during First World War, Second World War, and to see that my thought, this is like a test. I think this is like a test to see, has humanity learned something from the World War II and the horrific victims in the loss of life that we've suffered? I think Soviet Union alone, which was this 15 republics, now independent state, lost official number 27 million people and unofficial number 47 million people. Only they, not even counting United States and Brits, who helped and stepped in towards the end of the war to help fight Hitler too. Look at those lives lost. But the millions of people in Europe lost their life. And do we want to repeat the same history? And are we showing that we haven't learned anything? Are we going to push this towards nuclear war? Do we need to have some nuclear weapons fired up in order for politicians to just stop, or the people to wake up and pressure the politicians to stop? Because what we're looking at, guys, it's a world annihilation. Check out my interview with Scott Ritter that I did. It's on my YouTube channel. By the way, if you're watching from Facebook, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, guys. And click the bell. I know some people are like, oh, I didn't know you were live. Well, because you didn't click the bell. There is this little tricky bell on the YouTube channel where it says all notifications. So if you click that and select that and you subscribe, then every time I go live, you'll be able to see me in real time. But coming back to World War II, Tom is right. I think there is a problem that Germany and Poland are basically being led to the slaughter, guys. I hope this doesn't happen, but if nothing changes, if you think about it, before this 2022 offensive by Russia started, if you Google it up, maybe I'll show you a video sometime. Scholz and Zelensky, after Russia submitted its grievances and say, we don't want Ukraine into NATO. If you push Ukraine into NATO, we're going to do something about it. Stop doing it. Scholz went to Kiev, met with Zelensky, and they created the press conference where Zelensky, and that's again the end of 2021, like late December, whatnot, maybe even February, like beginning. So Zelensky is next standing to Scholz, and he's saying, yes, we want to go into NATO. And Scholz, yes, whatever Ukraine wants, we're going to do that. I'm thinking, Scholz, you are insane. Well, now Scholz got his Nord Stream 2 blown up and Nord Stream 1 doesn't work. Now German industry is going to be deindustrialized. They cannot afford to run the high-end businesses. They're all moving to other countries, including, I believe, to United States, is trying to solicit some talent from Germany. So now Germany is going to provide the tanks. The next thing you know, Germany is in the war with Russia. And guess what Russia then can do to Germany? And if Poland is eager to do the same, guess what? So, by the way, on the subject of Poland, here's you guys the protest, the Polish people protest. These are Polish people marching in Warsaw, capital of Poland. And in Polish, they are saying, the peace is life, the war is death. Now they are saying and shouting, this is not our war. To nie our wojna, to nie our wojna, or something along these lines. In Polish, that means this is not our war. Yeah, so Polish people, they basically are in the streets protesting, and they feel that one of these days their insane politicians are going to push Poland to another, God forbid, major war zone. That would be insane. But if you guys know what I mean, that's what they do. Let's see who we have. He's an idiot. Yeah, if you're talking about Scholz, I totally agree. He totally has destroyed his country. I mean, sorry, Mr. Scholz, but we call them as we see them. You definitely are not. And the war is a human meat grinder. Yes, that's pretty much. Have some more comment on Duda. Duda is considered a great Catholic in Poland, but he is probably a phony the way he risks his country's existence. Well, here is interesting, guys, about Duda. I have another video to show you while we're on the subject of Duda. Remember our favorite guy, Alexei Arestovich. Let me see if I should show you the article first. I'm going to share my screen with the article. Let me see. Alexei Arestovich, ex-Zelensky aide. Right here. I hope you can see it. Can you guys see this? Yeah, let me make it bigger for you. I hope this is big enough. Yes, ex-Zelensky aide cast doubt on Ukraine's military fortunes. While this is Alexei Arestovich, remember I've shown you in my previous lives the video where he's actually sitting down for the interview. I think it was 2018 or 2019. And he talks to the interviewer and says, we Ukrainians, meaning, know that the price for us to join NATO is a major scale war with Russia. This guy, Alexei Arestovich, if you pronounce his Ukrainized version of his name is Alexei Orestovich, and Russian version of his name is Alexei Arestovich. So he recently has resigned. And why he resigned is because in one of his videos where he speaks every day about Ukraine-Russia war, he actually let some truth out, and he said that the reason why Ukrainian civilians died in the city is because Ukrainian anti-missile defense fired a missile surrounded with civilians, and the rocket just fell and killed civilians. So basically, he spoke the truth that it was not Russian rocket that killed civilians, but it was Ukrainian anti-missile rocket that killed civilians in Ukraine. But of course, he immediately got criticized, and there was a huge backlash. So he resigned as one of these advisors to Zelensky. So yeah, but he's still very popular. He's probably number 2 person. In fact, some people actually thinking that maybe he will create his political party and run for Zelensky's spot. Who knows? But this article basically says that we're talking about Duda, is that Duda recently came out and said that we don't know if there will be Ukraine in the end of this, if there will be this major offensive or pivotal moment in Russia-Ukraine's war. And Polish President Duda, he said that he would like to see the West to help Ukraine, but unfortunately, he just basically cast doubt on the outcome of this war. So then comes this guy who picture you see here on my screen, Alexei Arestovich, a Ukrainian, a former advisor to Zelensky, and he basically resounded the sentiment that Duda said, whether we're going to have Ukraine in the end of it or not. So let us see the video. I believe this is the video where he actually talks about it.
Если все думают. Я сейчас неофициальное лицо уже, могу говорить, что хочу.
I will translate you as we go. He says, if everybody thinks, and I am the unofficial spokesman now, so I can say whatever I want.
Говорить, что хочу. Если все думают, что мы гарантированно выиграем войну, то
If everybody thinks that we are guaranteed to win this
ничего не
war,
похоже. С 14
it doesn't look like this from the 14th.
числа уже перестало быть на это похоже. Как бы.
It stopped looking this way.
Очень сильно. Как вы думаете,
It's very much so.
оценку от Дуды, от президента Польши?
What do you think that the president of Poland, Duda, said?
Что месяц, и не только он сказал про решающие месяцы.
And not only him who said that we have a very decisive month ahead of us that will decide the fate of this entire thing.
То вообще неизвестно, выживет ли Украина. Она просто
And it's not known whether Ukraine will survive this.
так было сказано, или он на основе какой-то информации говорил?
Do you think he just said it on top of his head, or does he have some type of information in his disposal?
Об этом. И если все думают,
That was Alexei Arestovich said. So he basically seems to agree with Polish President Duda that there is a possibility that by the end of this, should the things go more decisively in Russia's favor, there may not be Ukraine after all of this. So yeah, this is Alexei Arestovich. Let me see, guys, if you see him. If anybody knows Russian, he actually speaks Russian, even though he's in Ukraine and speaks on behalf of pretty much Zelensky. He's one of the few people who were still allowed to speak in Russian. Otherwise, they fine any officials who actually speak Russian. And he recently resigned, so he may be off the hook for a minute. But here's another interesting video. Let me see what your comments say. Poland will be the next proxy line to draw more countries in the conflict after Russia moves. Yeah, I'm afraid you're right, Tom. Poland is very eager to help and participate. I actually watched an interesting video from Polish news sources from their TV, and they're basically saying that, oh, looks like Russia is going to return its territories. What about us? Maybe we should start returning our territories that are a part of Ukraine too. So yeah, Polish would not mind to take a part of the Western Ukraine under their wing, so to speak. I know that much. Who else we have commenting? Question: where does the continent Africa stand in this war? Kweki Owusu, a very good question. You have to remember that Russia and Africa usually have a pretty good relationship because from what I read on the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, they actually had a long article about Russia-African relations. And what their point was is that Russia has never participated in a slave trade that other countries participated, trading African nationals, rather. So it appears that Russian Foreign Ministry believes that one of the reasons of good relations between Russia and Africa is that Russian people never participated in this massive slave trade. And the second part is during Soviet Union, Russia and Africa had a pretty strong relationship. Soviet Union built a lot of factories in Africa. They've allowed a lot of African students to come and study in the Soviet Union. So it was a pretty decent relationship. Right now, I believe African leaders are very much trying to resist the Western pressure to evoke sanctions against Russia. And of course, we know Africa needs the food supply and the grain supply, and Russia is a big supplier of grain and food to African continent. And of course, they have some other good relationships. So So far, African people, from what I understand, the latest I've seen, you may see something different, things change every day, but African leaders said that they would like to take a neutral position to where they disapprove of Russia's coming into Ukraine. However, they are not willing to take upon themselves any type of sanctions because it definitely will hurt African nations and the food chain supply. Of course, Russia provides a lot of fertilizer across the world and exports grain. So yeah, African leaders actually were very wise as to not to put the lives of their citizens in peril over the Western pressure. So far, they had a pretty level-headed approach to this entire thing, how I see it. Let's see if I have this other comment. Tom Casey says, interesting. I hope I am not missing anybody's comment. There is so many more. But all three superpowers want to rape Africa for resources. Well, you have to remember, Tom, China right now has a lot of interest in Africa. I think if you look at the map, world map, to see, by the way, China owns a lot of Ukrainian land. Of course, they made it under the guise of the lease. This is a lease or whatnot. So, but yeah, like I said, we'll do another live about Ukrainian land. Zelensky, when he became the president, lifted the, I think, moratorium was on sales of the land. Ukrainian people protested that, and they protested the sales of the Ukrainian land to foreigners. But there's a lot of loopholes, and finds out, you can Google it, China now owns thousands of hectares of the fertile Ukrainian land. And China owns lots of African I don't know, land or what they have, plants. And China has lots of investors in Ukrainian plants. In fact, there was one bombing one day. It was pretty interesting. Not the bombing part, but the political part behind it. That Zelensky announced that they're going to nationalize some very major plant in Ukraine, where I believe 50% or more were Chinese investors in Ukraine. So as soon as Zelensky announced that they're going to nationalize it, Chinese investors, of course, were not happy about it. They basically got robbed by Ukraine, by Zelensky. While 2 days later, the plant was bombed by Russia. Whatever they were producing there probably was militarily strategic, but it sounds like Russia hesitated bombing it because they are, quote unquote, semi-allies China. Chinese investors own that plant, but as soon as Zelensky robbed Chinese investors of that, and the plant immediately got bombed. So yeah, China owns a lot of things in Africa, and so does Russia own a lot of things as far as good relationship with African leader. And China owns a lot of properties in Ukraine. I missed somebody. I'm trying to get back to your comment here. Hello, everyone. Let me see. Meat and Taters Gaming. Hello, everyone. Okay, guys, you can also comment on each other's comments. If I talk too much, you can just kind of like give each other a little bit of a comment help if I am missing anybody. Feel free to do that. Jessica says, believe Tucker Carlson, the tops on Fox, is a true stellar. Well, Tucker Carlson does say a lot of good things. A question is, I have a lot of good things to say about Ukraine. As I ran for United States Congress in 2020, I would enlighten a lot of you guys, and including Tucker, on the Biden's dealings in Ukraine. Did Tucker Carlson invite me to his show? No. Did he invite, Dr. Shiva to his show, where Dr. Shiva looked into the Twitter files years ago, a couple of years back? Dr. Shiva was very openly talking about how he was banned from Twitter by speaking the truth. And he said, but Tucker Carlson never invited me to speak about it on his show. So yeah, Tucker says a lot of things that are true, but I think he needs to do more. Let's put it this way. And human meat grinder, I already had that comment before. Let me see. We have all the Muslim countries are laughing at Europeans killing themselves. Yeah, this is tragic. I agree with Tom. There's basically brothers fighting brothers. Do you guys know that it's like the best way to picture this is imagine that United States, right? We have states and people live nearby and they have family in a nearby state. And you may have a grandma living in Michigan and there will be grandpa living in, I don't know, Indiana, and the kids go to university in Illinois, and then they go shopping in, I don't know, run around or spend the summer in Florida. And you imagine how intertwined we all are. Well, Russians and Ukrainians lived in one country that was organized very similarly as far as on the map. Systems were totally different, but on the map, there were no borders between Russia and Ukraine. Now, they were republics, part of Soviet Union. So people intermarried, just like people intermarry in United States. People went shopping to across the border because you didn't need a visa. People married, they had kids, they had grandkids. You could drop off your grandkids for summer. And after Soviet Union collapsed, they became two different countries. So now you have to have a visa to go see your grandma every weekend. That's insane what happened to these people. But now on top of it, they're actually told to go and fight and kill each other. That's like us, God forbid, in different states, and how we're all intertwined, and family members are working in one state, living in another state, family in one state, the mother-in-law in a different state. Imagine, that's how Russian Ukrainians are. They're all intertwined in a very deep ways. They lived like this for at least 70 years of Soviet Union. And now they're killing each other. That's insanity. That is insanity. Who do we have? Josephine. Josephine agrees with me with what I said. Excellent. Victor, what do you got? Elena, you have so clear in mind. Totally impressed with your knowledge and proper understanding. We will support you. Thank you, Victor. I appreciate it. Thank you. Absolutely. I just hope American people understand this too. And that's why I'm doing these lives. And that's why I post a lot on the Facebook, because unfortunately, our media has been lying to us for years, and so do our politicians. They're corrupt and they're lying to us. And they're saying that the war started by Russia, which we know the war did not start in 2022. It started in 2014, after Obama and Biden, at the time vice president, Victoria Nuland, and all these other people took down, in cooperation with EU, legally elected president of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych at the time. And I told you guys, if anybody wants to know what happened in 2014 in Ukraine, just go and Google on Rumble the movie, because I think YouTube doesn't like people to learn the truth and suppresses that movie. The movie by Oscar-winning filmmaker Oliver Stone called Ukraine on Fire. It's an excellent documentary. It tells you exactly what happened in Ukraine in 2014. And since 2014, Ukraine has been bombing its own citizens in eastern Ukraine. And so then Russia, in the meantime, Zelensky is pushing for NATO membership. In the meantime, Ukrainian army is getting prepared to go and take over the eastern Ukraine, because militias and people got organized in eastern Ukraine, and they basically declared the autonomy and said that since we did not elect a coup government, we don't want to be pressured by the coup government. We want to continue things with elected officials and not with unelected coup officials. And of course, the unelected coup officials installed by West, United States and EU, started to quickly ban everything Russian language. You can't do this, you can't speak this, the church, everything. So the people in eastern Ukraine said, hey, I mean, we can be with you guys. We don't want to separate from Ukraine, but give us our rights. Give us an ability to speak our language, our native tongue, the tongue of my mother. And Ukraine wouldn't have it. So they started bombing them. And yeah, with American weapons, in case you guys didn't know. We were supplying weapons all these years since 2014. So Ukraine would kill its own citizens in eastern Ukraine. And then when those citizens, and they held back, they were able to hold the defense. And then in 2015-ish, plus minus, in end of 2014, France and Germany actually guaranteed the ceasefire agreement between Ukraine and Eastern Ukraine. And Russia was involved and overseen because Russian border is right there. Their security is at stake. And so there was supposed to be ceasefire. Ukraine should have stopped bombing these people in Eastern Ukraine since 2015, I believe, end of 2014. And Ukraine never did. It keeps bombing them to this day. And Zelensky, when he was elected in 2019, he said, our first order of business is stop bombing Donbass, Eastern Ukraine region. He never did. The shelling continued and continues to this day. And only a month ago, a few weeks ago, Angela Merkel, the German former chancellor, and the former French president, Hollande, came out and said, oh, those Minsk agreements that ceasefire was all a sham, basically, all a ploy to buy Ukraine more time so Ukraine can go and attack Eastern Ukraine. It's insane, guys. And of course, if you ask the Zelensky, like the little spiel that I played to you in the beginning, Russia attacked us. It's Russia started this war. No, Zelensky, newsflash. You, Ukraine, started bombing your own citizens against every international convention, the Hague, the Geneva Convention. You cannot bomb your own people. But Ukraine were doing it and getting away with it and still does it. Only now those people are separated and recently voted to join Russia, and Russian parliament approved it. You see, all these years, the people of Eastern Ukraine, they did not want to become a part of Russia. They only voted to be autonomous within Ukraine and hope that Ukraine will stop bombing them and accept the fact that they have their rights and they can speak Russian language if that's the language that they choose to speak. But Ukraine didn't want to implement Minsk agreement, under which they were supposed to have autonomy. And Ukraine never recognized their rights of their autonomy, didn't follow Minsk agreements, continued bombing these people. So basically preparing to attack them. And then in the beginning of last year, those people of Eastern Ukraine, they went to Russia and said, could you please recognize us as independent states? And then could you please sign a military collective self-defense agreement with us and send your Russian army to help us because Ukrainians are going to attack us? And the Russian parliament, and I think Putin had a Security Council meeting. They met. They decided that, okay, we will recognize the Eastern Ukraine portion, which has Donetsk and Lugansk, quote unquote, people republics. They recognize them as independent. They signed proper documents for collective self-defense under UN Charter, Article, I believe, 51. And then Russian army came in. So Russia tried to avoid this war. But Zelensky, of course, keeps saying that Russia is the one who is an aggressor and did this entire thing. Says, you're correct, Lena. Lesdacha, thank you very much. Yes, I keep repeating the same story because you never know who watches us, guys. Sometimes people who already know this story maybe need to hear it again. Maybe they didn't watch this before. So couple of things. Here's an interesting video. Again, Alexei Arestovich. I'm going to play him so you could read the subtitles on the big screen. I think that's what I'm going to do. Here's where he talks about the fact that Ukraine, the nationalistic policy of Ukraine is actually hurting Ukraine. And he actually speaks about, he says, we're idiots, meaning we Ukrainians. He says, we send the guys to die for us, for Ukraine, and those are Russian-speaking guys. But then we get on TV and say nobody who is Russian-speaking is a good person, and basically all have to be exterminated. He says, what are we doing? These are our own people. They happen to speak Russian. They go die for us in the battlefield. They're ethnic Russians, and we take their sacrifice. They're giving their life for Ukraine, but then we get on TV and say that they are bad, and then there shouldn't be no Russians or Russian speakers, and Russians should be banned. He said this is a crazy nationalistic policy that Ukraine basically is destroying itself by doing that. Yeah, we do know that Ukraine became a Nazi state, basically. All the opposition parties outlawed, Zelensky outlawed all the political dissent, the media, the independent media is all forbidden to speak out. He now harasses church. The special forces, armed men are going and knocking on the doors and getting rid of all the priests who they consider to be pro-Russian, and the churches are being nationalized and their property. Ukraine is really quickly descending into the madness. And this guy, Alexei Arestovich, is talking about it in his little short video. Let me do this way. You guys read the subtitles, what he's talking about as far as Ukraine basically destroying itself via not being inclusive of other people's cultures and languages, of those who live in Ukraine. And Ukraine has many nationalities, probably over 100 different ethnic groups. So for Ukraine to have this policy that Ukrainian is the only language and Ukrainian should be the only allowed language on TV, and Ukrainian should be the only allowed to be written as a language and spoken. And it's just insane. It is insane. That's what
Людей,
he's
на
talking
яких ми
about.
засуджуємо, які ми кажемо, ви якісь міняйте самоидентификацию, а иначе мы за себя не отвечаем, что вы вот привели сюда Россию, вы, значит, вы там, значить, сприяєте Росії, ви, значить, хочете смерті всього українського, за вас гинуть наші хлопці і так далі, і так далі. Ми хочемо, щоб вони після цього були за нас. Це ж божевілля взагалі.
Є такий наратив, ну, хай їдуть в Росію.
Ну, вони і поїдуть в Росію. Або зроблять так, щоб Росія приїхала сюди. І що тоді? Хто ідіот в цій ситуації? У нас дуже нерозумна національна політика і регіональна політика. Взагалі, не національна політика роботи з ідентифікацією. Навіть Радянський Союз краще її проводив, ніж ми. Що в Ізраїлі нема офіційних мов, але друга мова фактична, яка повсюди використовується, арабська, тобто мова їх ворогів. Може, євреї трохи щось знають, розуміють, чого не знаємо ми. Ми кажемо, що всі росіяни погані і хороших росіян не існує.
He's basically saying, he speaks Ukrainian and sometimes interjects in Russian, that our self-identity politics in Ukraine is basically a stupidity and it's crazy. He says, we say that all Russians are bad and there are no good Russians. I guess I have to read your subtitles because many of you probably can't see them on the phone. But he's basically saying that the people who speak Russian in Ukraine, they're still our citizens. And we should treat them with respect and not go into this national identity where we create enemies within by alienating different ethnic groups inside the Ukraine. So finish it up, this
А
video.
як чують нас етнічні росіяни в Україні? Або російськомовні? Що вони чують? Ви вороги. Він достає свій український паспорт, він пригадує двоюродного брата, який загинув під Бахмутом, будучи російськомовним солдатом ЗСУ, і каже, да пошла на нахер ця страна з такими подачами. А їхати нема куди, і він залишається в Україні, але в скритій опозиції до України.
Ненавидить, так?
Тому що Україна поводиться як повні мудки зі своїми собственними громадянами. Оце і все. Треба бути повним государственного уровня. Щоб, по-перше, приймати такі закони, по-друге, утримувати їх досі. Чому? Тому що, коли громадянин або людина знає, що держава його буде наказувати за те, що він спілкується язиком родної матері, він ніколи не буде лояльний і остаточно для такої держави.
He said just this. He said if the citizen of the state knows that the state will punish him for speaking the native tongue of his mother, that citizen will never be loyal to the state, to that state.
Держава хоче розстріляти громадян, так вона не утримує територію.
Ну, то есть возможности в Днепре сбить вот эту...
So he said if the state wants to punish its own citizens like this for their basically ethnic identity, this state like that will not hold its territory, he said. And this is a little snippet of, remember how I said the reason he has found himself under criticism by Ukraine is because he actually said the truth, that it was Ukrainian missile defense rocket that fell on the civilians and killed Ukrainian civilians. This is that snippet here with the subtitles. And
Вообще-то хорошей
Её-
возможности не было.
Нет, по ее сбили, она упала на подъезд.
А она упала на
Всё.
подъезд.
Да, ну, как бы она взорвалась, когда упала.
yeah, he said it blew up when it fell. The rocket was shut down and it blew up, and that's what killed the people. Who we have commenting? We have Erica commenting. It's insanity, said Naum Chomsky. Yeah. We have Gary. Anyone else see a pattern with the Western architects and installation of this corrupt Ukrainian regime? Soros, Blinken, Nuland, Zelensky, all Jewish. Oh my gosh, Gary, where are you going with this? And the majority of the Ukrainians being sacrificed in this needless globalist proxy war are all Orthodox Christians. Well, there is definitely a problem as far as the Ukrainian church has now been harassed by Zelensky and his regime for what they call connections to Russia. Here's the video, guys. This is the church on fire. And this is supposedly the Ukrainian church, Orthodox church, that supposedly still under what they call Russian patriarchy. So they still answer to Russian patriarchy as their religious leader. And of course, Zelensky now wants to say that you cannot be, as a Ukrainian church, sort of under the leadership of a Russian patriarchy. Can you believe it? This is church's internal business, how they do their things, who is under what patriarchy, but not in Ukraine. And of course, nationalists, the people who now fight anything and everything that has to do with Russia and have been for years, they do provocations like this burning that I've just shown you of the church. I feel for pastors. I really do feel for pastors about it. It's insane. We do know that for years and hundreds and centuries, the Orthodox Church in what is now Ukraine was a part of Russian patriarchy, because the very territory of Ukraine, most part of it, was under Russian Empire. And the main religion since centuries ago in Russian Empire was this Orthodox, Russian Greek Orthodox. You can call Russian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, but it was a Christian Orthodox religion that was, quote unquote, being overseen by the patriarch located in Moscow, Russia. And so now that Ukraine became independent, the Moscow Patriarchy still oversaw the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. But in 2018-19, then Ukrainian President Poroshenko traveled to Constantinople and actually got a permission and meddled in the church's affair to break the orthodoxy of Ukraine and Russia, and created its own Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Yes, the president of Ukraine back then, Poroshenko, meddled in the church's business and parliament voted. I mean, you can't make this up, guys. You cannot make this up. It's insane what's happening. We have bill very similar to what Nazi Germany did to Jews. Yeah, we have a nationalistic element in Ukraine that pretty much took power. And despite the fact that Ukraine is a home to over 100, I'm thinking, ethnic groups and different languages are spoken. There is Hungarian people that live in Ukraine. Gypsy Romani people, Armenians, Azerbaijanians, Kazakh people, you name it. There's just so many people that live there. But on the current Ukrainian quote unquote Nazi regime is Ukraine is just for Ukrainians. You speak Ukrainian language or die. You do as we told. You praise Bandera, Stepan Bandera, Nazi collaborator with Hitler during World War II, is now Ukrainian national hero. So you have to praise him or die. That's insanity. We have a big comment here. Let me see if I can post it. Said, US and Western, they don't know Russia and Putin as much as they should know. Propaganda from the media and politics has long instilled hatred and promoted that Russia is a violent country full of criminals. Putin over time has brought many good things to Russia, but that's it. The notion that US and the West have embedded hatred and looking down on Russia, as well as marginalizing Russia, has caused this war. If the agreement doesn't expand, the power of the border of Russia is violated. Well, the truth of the matter is the Western countries did promote Russophobia, and they still do. Remember, during Soviet times, the people always were told to, better dead than red. I mean, I think Scott Ritter said those slogans when he was growing up, that he learned something along the lines of kill the commie for money, better dead than red. I mean, if you teach people for generations to be Russophobic and be afraid and scared and dislike and hate Russia, one day they wake up, you cannot tell them to love Russia because you've already brainwashed them to be afraid of Russia. And I think that's what we have. A lot of people don't realize that they're living in their own ignorance, the prison of their own ignorance, thinking that Russia is this empire of evil and it does all the bad things in the world and it needs to be destroyed and balkanized, and we need to bring the Putin down, as Biden kept saying, this man cannot remain in power. And we do know that it's illegal to run around the world creating coups and take down foreign governments, right, John Bolton? It's illegal. It's against UN Charter. But we have American John Bolton, who was, advisor to many different administrations. He comes out on TV and gives an interview saying, oh yeah, I helped stage the coups in many countries. Other countries, not America, but other countries. So the guy is admitting that he is working against international law. And he is a top advisor or top official in our administration, after administration. And he has no qualm admitting that he was doing something that goes against UN international law charter, creating and staging coups. So, but that's what we do. So we wouldn't mind now with Biden saying that this man cannot remain in power, talking about Mr. Putin. And Biden said it in May of last year or March of last year, I believe, when he spoke in Poland. So yes, we are a Russophobic country right now at large. Unfortunately, our people are too much asleep. They listen too much to the media, and they don't understand that our own politicians are lying to us. And the ones who we should be really afraid of is our own politicians who are using our taxpayer money, send it overseas into this Ukraine's laundromat and launder it through there. Remember FTX scandal? Remember how the money goes to Ukraine, comes back here, and the FTX founder donates it to politicians here for the elections? Yeah, there's a lot of things. Let's see, we have an interesting comment here. Martha, hi, I'm from Netherlands, but now I'm with my wife in Russia, like we do every year for approximately 3 months. I see how Europe collapses through mass migration, energy crisis, corrupt government ruled by VEF people on a scary agenda. In Russia, things are going great already for more than 10 years. Russia is a strong, healthy country, especially compared with Europe or America. I think nothing can stop the East, and the West is over and out. What do you guys think about that? Yeah, good question. A lot of grievances against Russia that the West has is that Russia does not accept Western values. If you watch the interviews for President Putin, and of course, the Western officials and EU officials always say, oh, Russia does not subscribe to our EU values. We just have these great values. While newsflash, Hungary also doesn't subscribe to the EU values in some parts, and neither does Poland. For example, I think, what is that? Abortions are outlawed in Poland. Correct me if I'm wrong, but EU doesn't like it. Or same-sex marriage is outlawed in Poland, and so they are in Hungary, and so they are in Russia. So I believe Hungary and Poland are actually paying the fines to EU for some of the values, quote unquote, that don't align with EU values. But that's one of the grievances that EU has against Russia, saying that, oh, you need to recognize same-sex marriage. Well, Putin came and said, we are not homophobic, but we do believe as a country that we should let children be children, and when they grow up, they decide however they want to be treated in this LGBT type, what is it, narrative. And of course, the West doesn't like it that way, because look what's happening in the United States. Now in the United States, there's a big push for transgender, and the parents are not even allowed to agree or disagree when the child should do the transgender treatment. So we are far away and ahead of Russia on so many different levels as to what we think is acceptable and what Russia thinks is acceptable. And Russia is a very strong Orthodox religion that has its own tenets. And the Russian parliament voted for the law saying that it's illegal to do the propaganda of LGBT values to minors. So they're not against LGBT, but they have certain boundaries as to how far the promotion of this agenda can go. They want to protect children in the way that they feel they're protecting children. United States feels that protecting children here would be to not allow parents to make any decisions in their child's life. So we're totally polar opposite in this point. And of course, the Western countries are saying, well, we need to get rid of Russian values. We want Russia to have our values. And Russia is like, wait a minute. We have our own values, our own traditions, and they're cultural, and we would like to keep them. So no, thank you. Have a great day. Leave us alone. We'll leave you alone. So it's existential question for Russia to preserve its identity, to preserve its values. We have Ansu. They went to Afghanistan and Iraq, Somalia, so Libya, Vietnam, Syria, but they never win. But Ukraine war, they're saying Russia is losing compared to 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah, good point, Ansu. We have to remember that the war in Ukraine is basically Ukraine is fighting the country that is 3, 4, 5 times bigger than Ukraine. And Russia has nuclear weapons. So how far does the West want to take this war? If it starts losing like Ukraine is totally going to be capitulating before Russia, is the West going to resort to nuking Russia? I know Russia now is already installing the missile defenses in Moscow. I even have a video of that. But let me see. I may not have added it here. Let me see. Here is an interesting video, guys, of how Ukrainian soldiers now are getting recruited because obviously they already had 5 or 6 waves of mobilization. This is recruitment on the street. They're swearing. This basically military commissariat runs around Ukraine street and trying to draft people into the army. And some people resist, some people ask them to show their documents. Women are crying, taping this. This is how they're giving us draft notices in Ukraine. Yeah. So the woman says in Ukrainian, this is how they're giving us draft notices to our men to go into military. Yeah, this is very tragic. And the women are begging and saying, please don't hurt my husband. Please let him go. They're taping this. Yeah, so if the West thinks that Ukraine had, before the war started, 40 million people, now probably down to 30, maybe 25 million, because all the refugees ran away. Russia has 140 million. And so in Ukraine now, if you watch their videos, a lot of people get grabbed on the street, just like this guy. You can't go to the store if you're a man. You will be accosted on the street. You will be stopped because they want to recruit you in the army. Ukraine is losing hundreds of thousands of its soldiers. The West has thrown Ukraine into this, what they said, meat grinder, and they don't care how many Ukrainians die. They really don't, which is tragic. Ansu said Zelensky doesn't know that Western peoples are inconsistent, never believe any word from their mouths. Very soon they will change. Well, the Western media is pretty much lying to us. Yes. Sylvis, I'm just wondering why Ukrainian government doesn't let any media go to the war zone and show the true. Everything is controlled, even what we seem to be. Well, Ukrainian government doesn't want its own people to know the truth. That's for sure. Ukrainian government just does not want that. Do we have any people watching on YouTube, guys? I see a lot of comments from Facebook. Let me see. Anybody there still watching on YouTube? Because I can't see you guys. I can just see your comments if you post some comments. That would be great. Let me know. Post some comments. Here's another interesting video. This is Ukrainian guys.
И мы держали до 12 часов.
They're talking about the commander is reading them the order to go on the front line, and they're saying that we cannot go to the front lines because we're traumatized, because we held the positions and we never got artillery backup. We didn't have proper equipment, and we were left basically to die. And so after this gentleman reads them the order to go and get back onto the positions, they say, we refuse to go in positions. These are Ukrainian guys basically saying that they have been thrown to the sure death, and they refuse to go to the sure death because they will not receive proper weapons, proper artillery backup, proper safe measures will not be taken when they put on the front line. The commanders abandon them, and it sounds like if they refuse to fulfill the orders, they will be put in prison. So it looks like they may be choosing prison over dying on the battlefield, a sure death, where they feel that that's what they have been sent to the sure death.
14.01.23 року наказую згідно бойового розпорядження номер 713/23 від 5.01.23 року посилити позиції в смузі відповідальності 42-го отдельного мотопіхотного батальйону, стійко утримувати зайняті позиції для недопущення прориву противником в смузі оборони бригади. До виконання приступити. Командир зенітно-ракетного артилерійського дивізіону майор Чорний. Всі готові виконувати наказ?
Ні. Ні.
Причини?
Як було 8.01.2023 года? Нас туди кинули без
без пулеметів, без гранатометів, без підкріплення, без ночників, без тепляків. Кинув тільки з одними автоматами.
This guy is saying he's Ukrainian, he speaks Ukrainian. He says, we will not go in position because we were in position and they threw us down there with no machine guns, with no grenades, with no anything, and just basically left us there to be defenseless.
Шестерка патронів,
He said 6, 7 bullets,
20 гранат.
15 grenades.
12 часов. 12 часов ми змогли продержати котову оборону.
He said we only could hold up the defense for, 12 hours or something along those
А тут
lines.
вийшло з потерями 5 чоловік.
We lost 5 people, he said, in 12 hours.
І не було ніякого ні підкріплення, нічого. Як,
We had no backup, no anything came our
нічого
way.
не було в нас. З 4 часов визивали підкріплення до 12.
These are Ukrainian soldiers, and they're saying we were calling up for artillery backup and for the backup of the soldiers to come and help us to hold this defense position, but nobody was coming.
І так ніхто на подмогу не прийшов. Нам
Nobody came to help us.
ту позицию, которую спотели 5 человек.
And we lost 5 people on that position.
В связи с сложившейся ситуацией, когда мы были у 42-го батальона на помощи, на нас забили все хер, нам никто ничем не помог, и мы не готовы идти обратно и обратно ложить своих же людей из-за того, что у нас не было подкрепления, у нас не было БК, когда мы его запрашивали, у нас не было поддержки. Поэтому
This guy says that they didn't have any support. They didn't have any support from the backup that they were promised, and they're traumatized and they will not return to
мы
position.
морально и психологически не готовы туда идти обратно.
Ну, я думаю, цього достатньо.
So you could see these guys, they look pretty scared though. They look pretty distraught and scared. They don't know what's going to happen to them. And remember, a few weeks ago, Ukrainian commander-in-chief Zaluzhny, he came out and he told Zelensky that they need stricter laws against deserters because it's becoming a big problem for Ukrainian army, the deserters. And Zaluzhny said that we need stricter laws, stricter sentences to prevent desertions. And I remember when this war started in 2022, we know that it started in 2014, but we're talking about 22 when Russian troops came in. The Ukrainian parliament was actually in proposing the laws where the commander can shoot a soldier for refusal to step on and go into position. So I don't know if it's still something that the military does, or is it a law if it's not, but I do know it was proposed as a punishment. So who knows what happens to these guys who refuse to go in positions. They definitely go to jail, military jail, and they probably will have to face tribunal. But my concern is that they wouldn't just be killed in the woods somewhere. It's tragedy, guys. It's tragedy. Who do we have here? Martino. They were disappointed in Zelensky, and now Mr. Zelensky, and now they found out. I had a great comment. Somebody's watching from Norway here. I did play it when I played the video. Let me remember. We have, who do we have watching from Norway? I think it's DC, if I'm reading correctly. Here we go. DK, I think you are from Norway, right? I worked with Norwegian people too, so I love Norway. I think there was one of the greatest people that I personally encountered from Norway when I worked with international corporations across the world and traveled in my career before I came to the United States. What point do you think there might be a mass surrender among Ukrainian soldiers? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm saying that they already have that problem. And the problem of it is, if you if you ever watched the Chechen, Russian volunteer troops, Chechen with Kadyrov troops, they actually explained how Ukrainian troops are positioned. They said that first they will send the recruits, the guys who are drafted in Ukrainian army, they will go first. And for them not to go backwards and not to desert, behind them, they place Nazi battalions, the really hardcore Nazi ideology, Ukraine is above all, death to enemies, different battalions like Azov, Kraken, Right Sector, Aidar, these different Ukrainian Nazi battalions, they have different insignias. Lots of them actually have swastika type insignias on their chevrons. So they will put the draftee guys, the simple guys who come through the draft up front. Like those guys say that we're being used as the cannon fodder, battlefield fodder. And behind them, there will be these Nazi battalions that will make sure that these guys cannot run back. And if they do, my understanding is these Nazi battalions kill them. That prevents them from running back. So these guys cannot always surrender, or they cannot even always leave their position without being killed by what they call a borderline, these Nazi battalions that are stationed behind them, make sure that they keep going forward and not backwards. I did watch a lot of videos where people are actually in Ukraine are saying that as soon as we're done with this war, we're coming to Kiev and we're going to be dealing with corrupt politicians who are sitting there having a great time, and we're here supposed to rot in trenches while parliament members and their children don't go to war in Ukraine. Only the poor people go. And here is a cool video. This is Ukrainian lady. And if you guys understand what she is saying, she's basically saying that I'm not going to give my husband
Привіт, друзі. Не знаю, пропустять моє відео.
Until the every parliament member will send their kids to this war in Ukraine. And she says that don't tell me, she says, I don't care what you think about me, but my family and my children cannot survive without my husband. We all depend on him. And if you want me to send my husband there to the front lines and fight Russians, then the parliament members of Ukraine need to send their kids to fight. And she then says that I believe, she says, if we did have Ukrainian parliament member children recruited to go to this war would be over immediately, she says. But she says basically the fact being is, she said that military commissariat is acting like a Robin Hood. It takes the draft notices from the rich people and gives it to the poor people, meaning those who cannot pay the bribe to military commissariat not to go to the war and not to be drafted and to be mobilized into Ukrainian army, those rich people avoid draft. But the poor people, those who cannot afford to bribe their way out of being drafted, are the ones sent to the front lines, while politicians and their children are not drafted into the army. And she said, if we had politicians send their children to the army of Ukraine to fight Russia, this war would be over immediately. So listen in, if you understand that language which she is speaking.
Видно, багато я балакаю. Хотілося мені підняти таке питання. Да, от зараз всі масово обсуждають, що почали роздавати повістки всім подряд.
She said they're saying that now the mobilization new wave in Ukraine, that they're giving draft notices to everyone, to all the men, to get them drafted into the army. Obviously, Ukraine suffers huge losses on the battlefield, huge losses.
Опять же, вам нічого не напоминає цей режим, повна мобілізація? Я не спорю, і я казала з першого дня, я за Україну. Це моя батьківщина, я її
She says, I am for Ukraine. I said it from the first day. I love my
Люблю,
country.
її треба захищати.
We need to protect it.
Але я готова віддати
But I am ready to give my husband
свого чоловіка на смерть і на війну, на захист
to death and to the war
України і так далі, і так далі. Коли з моїм
and for him to defend the country and to defend Ukraine only
чоловіком піде на війну депутат.
when the parliament member will go together with my husband to the front line. The parliament member of Ukraine. She's speaking Ukrainian.
У нас 415 депутатів сидить тільки в Верховній Раді. І в кожного є син. А як немає сина, хай або віддає свого сина, або іде сам.
She says we have 415 members of parliament in Ukraine. So if each one of them has a son, and if they don't have a son, then they'll go, let them go themselves if they're men.
От тоді буде повна мобілізація. От тоді буде чесно.
Then it will be honorable, and that will be honest then.
Ви зараз сім'ї скажете, а як же ті хлопці, які йшли раніше? Це велика біда. Да, люди були військово обов'язані, які служили, вони йшли, вони надіялись на правду, на чесність, що влада їх підтримує, що все-таки буде повний порядок, що всі будуть єдині. А зараз, вибачте, що? Получається, воєнкомат поступає як Робін Гуд. Забирає повістки в багатих і роздає бідним. Вам нормально це все? Ні, я вам скажу лічно. Я особисто піду з животом і своїми 2 дітьми і стану і буду вигризати. Хай мене вбивають, хай садять. Але поки не буде вся наша влада здихати разом з нами разом іти в окопи, і так само не будуть депутати віддавати своїх синовей на смерть, як я віддам свого чоловіка, то порядку тут не буде. І чесно.
She says that she's ready with her pregnant belly go and fight. And she said, if they kill me, they kill me. I don't care. But she said, until our own parliament and our own government will not stand and fight side by side with us and our husbands in this war, there is not going to be any honesty. There is not going to be any order in Ukraine. Basically saying that what it happens is while people like Zelensky and parliament members and their children there is actually some type of a law in Ukraine that if your child studies in a foreign university, then he doesn't have to go to war and doesn't have to be drafted. So what Ukrainian people are saying more and more, that all the fancy politicians' children are not in the trenches. They're not fighting in this war. And she said that the military commissariat is acting like a Robin Hood, takes the draft notices from the rich people and gives them to the poor. And she says, until we have politicians and their children fighting in this war and giving their lives side by side to my husband and our children who are dying in this war, she said, that's not going to be any honesty and the truth, and it's not fair, she says. So let's see what other comments we have. We have Eva. Eva is saying, Azov Nazis are really cowards. Well, if you guys know what Azov Battalion is very much the nationalistic ideology. Some people call them white supremacy, but hey, they're not particularly only white supremacy, even though they do profess a lot of bad things they would like to do to the people of color and other ethnic groups. But they also very and they have animosity against other white people. Let's say people who do not speak Ukrainian. So yeah, it's a very nationalistic group. That the sad part is that United States once made a resolution in Congress that the money that we provide to Ukraine should not go to arm Azov Battalion. But now we bring Azov Battalion members to United States Congress and give them tours. Like what, we forgot what their ideology of theirs is? we had congressmen saying that Azov ideology is a neo-Nazi ideology. Therefore, the money shouldn't go to Ukraine to end up in their disposal. But now we forgot about it. Now we bring them to United States, we arm them, we feed them, we give them tours, we give them honors. Yeah, it's insane. We are insane. We're officially insane. Governments cause wars and hate, not people. Very true, Tom Casey. And if you guys know, I am fluent in Ukrainian and Russian both. And I watch a lot of different interviews, different news sources from all over the world. Because obviously I know a few other languages too. But Russian people, they always, in a lot of their programs, they say, we are not fighting against Ukrainian people. Even Russian soldiers and the Chechen volunteer fighters who are fighting on behalf of Russia, they all say, we are not, this is not a war against Ukrainian people. They said, we are fighting this Nazi element of Ukraine and corrupt Nazi element of its government that allows for the Nazi ideology to be promoted in Ukraine. So they're very clear that they're not fighting the Ukrainian people, quote unquote, who are good-hearted people and who want peace. It's only those who are oppressing Ukrainian people, all those with that Nazi ideology, and harass people for speaking the language that they don't like. This is all very nationalistic Nazi ideology that I thought we did away with after the Hitler was defeated. But looks like that ideology got rebirthed in Europe, and it's nice and well, and it's rebirthed in Ukraine, where one group of people considers themselves superior over other ethnic group of people. That's insanity. We cannot allow it. We don't allow it in the United States. Why are we supporting it in Ukraine? Why? There is no explanation other than corrupt politician, laundromat machine between the corrupt politicians of here and over there. We have DKCB Asia. Some time ago on the subway, and I noticed a male Ukrainian nationalist beside me. I found out because I peeked on his phone. Do you know number of Ukrainian citizen moles who have evaded service? Oh, that's a big problem. It's definitely a big problem. Now Poland, I think one of their government officials said that we will recruit the Ukrainian refugees men and send them to fight in Ukraine, because there is obviously a lot of men who defected from Ukraine, and lots of them are abroad, Poland, America, you name it, to avoid service. And you have to remember this. Some of the men, I read the interviews with some of the men who say the reason they do not want to, go into be drafted in the army, which again, avoiding the draft in Ukraine is illegal. I think there is a big prison sentence for doing so, for avoiding the draft. But some still took that risk and fled, I guess. And they're saying, some guys said the reason why they don't want to go and die, of course, nobody wants to die, that's another story, right? But they're saying that they don't want to go fight their basically family members. The tragedy of Russia-Ukraine war is because people do have family members on both sides. I've seen some interviews to where the brother-in-law will be in the Russian army, and another brother-in-law would be in Ukrainian army, because people lived, Russians and Ukrainians lived close and then within the same country for generations. They intermarried, they have grandkids, kids, uncles, aunts. There's like big, huge families where now they find themselves on two different sides of this war. One's in the Ukrainian army, one's in Russian. And some of these guys who ran away from being drafted in Ukrainian army, they said, we don't want to go kill potentially my own cousins, my own family members in this war. So, and of course we know Russia Russia's draft is different. Russia only drafted those people with previous military experience. And Ukraine drafted pretty much everyone eligible within the age frame. And Russia only did the ones who were have previously served in the army. So Ukraine is getting everyone. I've seen some Ukrainian videos. The guys are saying that we have these dudes coming that they just freshly mobilized. They never shot in their life. They never held a gun. So Ukraine getting everyone. Russia only gets those with previous army experience. So we have another, you have excellent insight and information. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Who else do we have? Rumors that Ukrainian refugees are being drafted for the war. The big freeze starts at the end of January and tanks are getting ready to roll in from Russia. Well, Bob Carpenter, very true. Like I said, there is an article, I think it's on RT, saying that Polish officials are now saying that any guys from Ukraine who are sitting out in Poland and hiding from Ukrainian draft need to be recruited and sent back and fight to Ukraine. And of course, we know that there are plenty of Polish guys already are dying in Ukraine. So I don't know if they're out of uniform sent by Polish army or are they volunteers. But if you watch a lot of videos from the front lines in Ukraine and the Russians that post the videos from frontline, a lot of Polish language in there, a lot of English language. There are Americans, there are Brits, there is Germans, there is Polish people. There is people from all over the world fighting, quote unquote, in Ukrainian army. And the last figure I saw, there was at least 1,200 Polish soldiers that were killed already. And that was a few months ago. I'm expecting that's much more now. So yeah, Polish people, oh, God help you. Again, for those who haven't seen this video, I'll play it again. This is Polish people protesting the war in Ukraine, and they don't want to have their people go die in that war. They're saying the war is death, peace is life, they're saying. They're saying this is not our war. That is not our war. Polish people protesting, and the fact that Polish troops or Polish engagement may be impending. They protesting Poland's entanglement in Ukraine's war. So I've shown this one to you guys before. Let me see. I have some articles to show you. Gosh, I have so many different things to show you. Oh yeah, this is an interesting information. Let me share this one with you. Let's see, stop screen, gosh, video file. Oh, well, I think I should do the tab, view the tab. What tab do I have? Oh, this one. Okay, stop sharing. Now I'm going to have this other tab. Wagner Group. Did you guys hear about Wagner Group and what it is? This is the group that, let me see, right here. This is article. US to label Russia's Wagner Group a criminal organization. The Wagner Group is the group that have been founded by Mr. Prigozhin. Some people called him a Putin's chef. I guess years ago when President Bush came to Kremlin, he either served dinner to Bush and Putin or he was present at the dinner. So Prigozhin is supposedly an oligarch or wealthy Russian oligarch who created this sort of a private army. They have helicopters, they have weapons who come who knows from where. And the Wagner Group is the group that's recently freed, what they call freed or captured, if Ukrainians would say it, the city of Soledar. And recently, Wagner Group also pushed Ukrainians out of the key position in the village of Kleshevka, I believe. The criticism against Wagner Group is that coming from the West is saying, oh, they're a criminal organization. So we're going to label them because they're involved in different operations in Africa, in Syria, and someplace else. So, and of course, we know that Wagner Group founder, Mr. Prigozhin, he, I believe, was on camera recruiting some of the guys from Russian prisons into his private military contracting group called Wagner Group. And of course, we know that Americans have also a private military contracting group that's fighting in Ukraine against Russians called Mozart Group. So we have this Wagner Group, the Russian private contractor, and we have Americans private, call themselves private contractors called Mozart Group. I mean, what's up with all these operatic references, right? And all this symphony. But with that said, guys, we have Wagner Group, Prigozhin, going to Russian prisons. And basically, I've seen the videos where he says that he has some type of authority to cast down a person's death sentence or prison sentence if that person joins his private military contracting group, goes to Ukraine, and dies as a hero, or if that person serves for 6 months and doesn't die, then that person can go free and his sentence will be commuted and removed. And of course, Prigozhin says that, I think in his video, he said, I am proposing you this opportunity. He's talking to prisoners, to Russian prisoners. I give you freedom, he said, but I don't always return you alive. And it sounds like there is a pretty high, death rate in the Wagner Group because their motto is they never go back. Like this private contracting group headed by Prigozhin, they're very trained in assault operations. That's how they took power of the city Soledar a couple of days ago. Even Russian Ministry of Defense had to come out and admit that Wagner Group was the one who took that city from Ukrainian troops. And there is apparently a bit of a rift between official Russian military commanders and Prigozhin and maybe Kadyrov and some other people who are a little bit more advocating for a little more aggressive action, a little strong action against Ukrainian army. And maybe they don't always see eye to eye. But again, my understanding is private contracting is not particularly legal in Russia. But Mr. Prigozhin and his group, Wagner Group, is very popular, and they apparently do a lot of very strong assaults where other troops, may not be put in that position. But the Wagner Group shows a lot of results, according to the reports, how they are able to break the defenses and capture cities. And of course, they have different approach to how they motivate the soldiers by saying that you cannot go back or you will be killed. You cannot surrender or you will be killed. So that's Wagner Group. But looks like United States now wants to designate Wagner Group as a criminal organization, to which Mr. Prigozhin, the founder of Wagner organization, said, okay, fine, then United States and us will finally be colleagues, hinting that United States is not a saint, my understanding. So, It's interesting, guys. In case you don't know what Wagner Group is, Google it up. You can find the information about Wagner Group. We'll see. Not all Russian convicts could apply. Murderers, peddlers, and rapists were excluded from applying. Very true, Mary. Very true. When I watched the video when Prigozhin, supposedly Prigozhin, because I don't think he ever admitted that it's him in the video. But when he supposedly recruits the people, it was like a 5-minute good video. He said that they only take convicts with particular articles or particular convictions, not all. They don't take the convicts who do drugs. Drugs are a no-no or something to do with drugs. Then he said they also understand that the criminal system of Russia sometimes convicts people who may be innocent or people who claim that they are innocent. So they will give these people what is it called? The test, the lie detector test. And he named lots of different conditions under which they give these guys in prison the chance to go serve their country. But there is definitely a tough process of selection that those convicts have to go through. And the Prigozhin said himself in that video, again, if it's him, he said that if once you make this decision to come and join our Wagner Group, he said, when you get to the front line, you cannot go back. Basically, he told them this is a one-way ticket. He said, if you go to the front lines and then you say, oh, no, I didn't sign up for this. I want to go home. I want to go back to prison or whatever. He says it's pretty much instant death. So these people don't fool around. That Wagner Group, and of course, West accuses Wagner Group of the human rights violations, whatnot. But if you think about it, Zelensky kept saying that, oh, Russians bring convicts to the front lines. Well, Zelensky, let's look at you. Did you guys know that when Russian army came in February 2022, Zelensky immediately released all the prisoners with military experience and sent them to the front line. That's how the notorious Ukrainian Nazi Tornado Battalion members were released, who were accused and sentenced and were in prison for the most horrific. I don't even want to tell you what the crimes they are. Google it. Tornado Battalion. And there is a great website that documents what these people did in Ukraine called Stalker Zone. So Google Stalker Zone Tornado Battalion. It will show you what these people were convicted of. The most horrific atrocities. And Zelensky let them out and said, go to the front line. I need soldiers. So Zelensky released all the prisoners. The only prerequisite was former military experience of sorts. So there we go. And of course, he criticizes Russia for having convicts fighting in the war. Well, the convicts are mainly coming from the Wagner Group, who recruits them once in a while. But Zelensky, while criticizing Russia, never mentions that he is the one who released prisoners in Ukraine and sent them to the front line without even going in such depths as Wagner Group does to recruit them. He just said anybody with military service, previous experience, off to the front line, get going. We see, Mary, I personally think it's a good thing to give these people a chance of redemption. Well, some people think that. Some people think it, and I think Wagner Group leader said, he said, I take you out, but I don't always return you back alive. But he said to them that you will have a chance to fight for your country and either die a hero or live as a hero. Choice is yours. That's how he presents it to them. Let me see what other... We have, and so I care less about Wagners as long as they bring peace in Mali and Central African Republic to wipe out terrorists. Yeah, it sounds like the Wagner Group is pretty much all over the world here and there. in different capacities. But again, they're private contractor, so they're not particularly connected to Russian Ministry of Defense. And it's not particularly, quote unquote, legal to have private military contractors in Russia. But somehow all these pieces of the puzzle work together and fight in Ukraine the same way that all the foreign mercenaries from other countries, it's illegal in Britain to become a foreign mercenary and go fight in some other country. But Brits do it all the time. Americans, I believe, the same thing. And yeah, it's a strange war. We have Bob Carpenter, big demonstrations in France and strikes there and in the UK. Everyone is waking up and sick of the war and rising prices mainly. Yeah, the Europe is going to suffer because of the volunteer sanctions that the leaders of all these countries employed and put on Russia, and Russian fertilizer and Russian grain and Russian gas, and now cap prices on the Russian oil. And of course, they blew up Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1. And so, yeah, I watched Italian TV where they had Italians now, instead of giving people money on one of these Wheel of Fortune shows, they give them as a prize that they will pay their utility bill, monthly utility bill. People cannot afford the basics in Europe. America is following the same path. I mean, look at the grocery prices. Last time I went to the store, I was in shock. The most expensive apples, what is it? My favorite Honeycrisp apples used to be like $7.99. Last time I was at the store, they were $13.99, like double the price. And the least expensive couple of pounds apples were like $3.99. Last time they were $5.89. And just about every produce, eggs, look how everything, the prices is just skyrocketing. Inflation is insane in the United States. So yeah, and the Biden wants to bring us to the nuclear war because these people don't have the brakes. They don't have a reverse gear. I was gonna show you this, guys. This is pretty interesting article. Remember my interview with Scott Ritter? If you guys haven't seen it, on my YouTube channel, I have interview I just did the other day with Scott Ritter. He is a former UN inspector, chief inspector for UN. He was the guy who spoke the truth about Iraq, that they did not find any weapons of mass destruction there. And of course, Joe Biden, back then was a senator, was totally disgracefully and rudely telling Scott to know his place, and as if talking about it as above Scott's pay grade. I could not believe it when I saw it. It's the most despicable display that Biden spoke like this to United States military veteran. Don't even, I mean, not even counting any human being shouldn't be spoken like this. But this was our veteran. That's how much Biden doesn't care, neither about a person or people or veterans or any one of us. He wants to put us on the brink of nuclear war with Russia. So this is the big, basically like a chart and a graph that who had and has the most nuclear weapons over the years in one country and how much Russia has. And I was asking Scott some questions about this. And I said, Scott, do you think that when we had more nuclear weapons, it almost sort of seems like it was a bigger deterrent? I mean, because now it's scary what these people are doing. They keep saying that Russia is going to nuke Ukraine. Well, Russia says that supposedly it's not going to use nuclear weapons against Ukraine, but if it has to, it will use it against NATO countries. And in United States, and Scott Ritter said in that interview, he said, yes, Madrid will go, Brussels will go, Germany will go, the Brits will go, everybody will go. So is that what Biden wants, to bring us to the brink of nuclear war and with Russia? just so he could use Ukraine and rob those people of Ukraine for another 20 years. It's pretty scary, but I thought I mentioned this was this chart that I refer in my interview that I've seen about who has the most nuclear weapons and how they worked up some type of agreements to slow down the arms race. In case you guys wanted to see that article, that's right there. Who do I have? I see Mary saying, lol, in Maine, I cannot afford to fill my oil tank right now. Yeah, it's insane. The prices are insane. It's really, my heart goes out to every European, but firstly to every American person who does not understand that thinks that the war in Ukraine doesn't affect their everyday life. Well, it does, guys, because our inflation is through the roof. We keep printing money. We have Jessica. Your knowledge and gift for languages brings as much interesting information to your program. Thank you, Elena. Yes, Jessica, thank you. I have some more videos, but I will be using some other ones. I just gonna try in different topics, different videos to see what might be interesting to you guys. We have Wendy. Canada has created Ukrainian bonds to raise even more money to prolong this war. Yes. Well, remember the recent scandal with FTX, right? FTX scandal with the crypto exchange, when United States was sending money to Ukraine and Ukrainian government was sending money back here and investing it in the crypto exchange ran by Sam Bankman-Fried, the crypto FTX exchange. And so one day, a couple of months ago, that crypto exchange went bust. Guess who were one of many thousands, I don't know if maybe tens of thousands investors, and that 22 billion went bust crypto exchange? Canadian teachers. So Ukrainian government and Canadian teachers are both investing in a crypto exchange ran by American 29-year-old Sam Bankman-Fried, who is the largest donor to Democratic Party after George Soros. Google it up, guys. You can't make this stuff up. And Sam Bankman-Fried, he pledged that he will donate $1 billion to Joe Biden's campaign for president in the next cycle. So United States and Canada, because we know Canada has a big diaspora of Ukrainians in Canada that were brought down there after the World War II. Well, and of course, every time there is a Ukraine subject, Canadians are involved and Americans are involved. And did you guys know, maybe I'll do another live about it, that Ukraine had this coup, right, in 2014, when Obama and Biden and Victoria Nuland took down democratically elected president of Ukraine. And of course, McCain was involved, Chris Murphy. It's not only Democrats who are doing it, with mostly Democrats, but there are a couple of Republican senators like Lindsey Graham and Senator McCain, who is deceased now, also were involved over the years in destabilizing Ukraine, because they were flying back there trying to raise up this faction of Ukrainians to basically topple the elected government. They stood on the stage with protesters while the illegally elected president was there in Ukraine. Our senators and Victoria Nuland were there with protesters protesting illegally elected president. Would this be allowed if any foreign government official, top diplomats, would come and protest with Americans against, God forbid, our American president here? Never would be allowed. But in Ukraine, our senators did just that. Watch the movie Ukraine on Fire, made by Oliver Stone, an Oscar-winning filmmaker, documentary about Ukraine in 2014. You will see Biden starring in that movie. You will see Obama. You will see McCain. You will see Nuland. Now they're like, oh, we don't know what's happening in Ukraine. It's all Putin's fault. these people know exactly what they did to Ukraine in 2014 and even before, which brings me back to the point that the coup before the coup was Orange Revolution in Ukraine. And at that time, the President Yanukovych was running against the other guy called President, later turned President, Viktor Yushchenko, I think. Was it Viktor? God, I forget his name. But guess what? That Orange Revolution, quote unquote, was mostly peaceful, while the coup of 2014 wasn't. But the guy who, quote unquote, won the presidency back then, what is it, year 2004, Orange Revolution in Ukraine, his wife actually worked. She's from diaspora, from Chicago, United States, and she worked for various administrations and the State Department of United States. So the president of Ukraine, who quote unquote won elections, even though lots of people say that it wasn't really an election, that was another coup, a revolution, when Ukraine is only allowed to have 2 tours for people to compete for presidential seat for the vote. But against the constitution, because the West didn't like who was winning, they held the 3rd round of vote, and Constitutional Court of Ukraine kind of caved in and allowed the 3rd round of voting. That's when Yushchenko won, and his wife used to work for United States State Department. So you guys can't make it up. Ukraine is not independent. It has been owned by our corrupt politicians, basically buttering up the grease with their corrupt politicians, and a tragedy for Ukrainian people. They still don't understand that they're not dying for their independence. They're dying to continue dependence and external governing of Ukraine by Western corrupt politicians who mean them no well. So let's see, who do I have some other comments? Uniparty charade, wake up America, exactly. Well, I like the comment here. I think, where's my cookies comment? I just saw that. Jessica said, Victoria Nuland picked the next Ukrainian leader. Yes, if you guys Google it up, it's a famous leaked conversation where Victoria Nuland said, F the EU. Yeah, she's basically talking to American Ambassador Jeffrey Pyatt back then in 2014, and hadn't picked in Ukrainian coup government. Can you believe it? You do realize that it's illegal to stage the coups or plot the coups. It's against UN charter. So our state officials are running around changing democratically elected leaders around the world. And then Russia is a criminal? Give me a break. Wake up, people. Yeah, I see Jessica says, Elena, don't forget the cookies. Yes, guys. If you watch the movie Ukraine on Fire, I almost think it may be there by Oliver Stone, again, about events in Ukraine in 2014. I think it shows, but if you don't see the movie, just Google it up. Our Victoria Nuland, at the time, Secretary or Undersecretary of State Department regarding the Eurasian affairs, she traveled to Ukraine and brought cookies to the people who were protesting legally and democratically elected president, sitting president of Ukraine. Our top diplomat official brought cookies to the protesters. Let's talk about this is against any kind of diplomatic protocol. I don't know, UN, you name it. But Victoria Nuland did it. So imagine Putin would come with cookies to, let's say, Capitol and was giving cookies out to protesters. Or send Lavrov, one of his top diplomats, to hand out cookies to protesters standing protesting Biden, let's say, or somebody down there at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. That's impossible. But American officials did it in Ukraine. And now Putin is evil. Yeah, right. Let's talk about what you guys did in Ukraine. You, Miss Victoria Nuland. By the way, guys, excellent article about Victoria Nuland is called "A Perpetual War is a Family Business." I think it's made by Consortium Views. Perpetual War is a Family Business. Google it up. You will not believe it. Victoria Nuland's husband, I think his last name is Mr. Kagan. He is actually a founder of a theory of interventionism. That's how you go and intervene in other countries' internal affairs and change regime and topple the democratically elected leaders in the country. So her husband is the proponent of this interventionism theory. And of course, they're practicing it too, right? Look what they did to Ukraine. But then either a sister-in-law or something along those lines of Victoria Nuland's works for what they call an Institute of Study of War. And of course, with this Russia-Ukraine situation, all we hear is about predictions and the maps produced by Institute of Study of War. So they got it all covered, guys. So Victoria goes, protests, make sure, Mr. Kagan creates a theory how to intervene. She comes and does it. And then we have another relatives involved in the Institute of Study of War, who is now, when the war is on, does all the narratives about how the war is going on and who is winning, who is losing, and creates the maps. You can't make this up. The article is called Family Business of Perpetual War. An article is made in about 2015. It was published just when Victoria Nuland was appointed by Obama to some higher position in the chain of Obama administration. I say Wendy says yes. We have millions of Americans who will never vote again. Yeah, Tom, it's not encouraging because our elections are basically selections nowadays. It's really tragic for America. That's like the only thing we can do is vote. But if we cannot trust how our votes are counted or chain of custody of the ballots, if people can vote without ID, there's a lot of questions. What do you think it will take for American foreign policy towards Russia to change? Good question, excellent question. I think that interview with Scott Reeder that I did the other day, Scott Reeder actually said that he hopes that in 2024 we will have the president elected to office who would be able to overcome Russophobic tendencies. That's what Scott was thinking, that maybe that would help to shift our foreign policy. Well, that's probably one of the points, but I think, unfortunately, my personal take, that it probably is going to take a disaster for us to change the foreign policy. For right now, Russia have been very patient. Russia has not been overreacting. Russia has pushed its red lines multiple times. Russia said, if you strike Crimea, we're gonna strike decision-making centers. Well, that never happened. Crimea Bridge was blown in a terroristic attack. The truck was blown up. There was a big damage to the bridge. People died. Civilians were dead in this terrorist attack. But Russia didn't, quote unquote, retaliate in some manner because Russia is not a terrorist state. Russia doesn't do these things. And Scott Reeder rightly mentioned that that's not Russia's methods. Russia acts within international law framework. But my thought, if we still do not understand that the world reality has changed and Mr. Putin and Chairman Xi from China and other leaders, look at Erdogan. Erdogan in Turkey right now, he's not walking a straight line. Even John Bolton from the United States is saying, we need to look into Erdogan and we need to make sure maybe we could just get rid of Turkey and not allow it into NATO anymore if they're not going to play ball with us. And Erdogan recently came out and accused John Bolton trying to meddle with the elections in Turkey and sort of opposing Erdogan for Erdogan's having this quote unquote more or less independent positions on issues when it comes to Russia. So we either could let political dinosaurs like John Bolton bring us into the nuclear war with Russia, and maybe after that we will wake up. After that, maybe people will demand that we do not go there and we elect politicians, or we have politicians who are not insane and want to kill us off just so they could sit it out in their bunkers. I don't know what their plans are, but I don't have a bunker. I don't know about you guys. They probably do. Our taxpayer dollars pay for their bunkers. But unless our politicians, what I call political dinosaurs and political fossils, will not wake up one day and decide that maybe they don't want to kill off the entire planet in a nuclear Armageddon with Russia, it unfortunately may actually take a nuclear Armageddon to wake these idiots up. I don't have any other words. Forgive me, guys. I don't want to be mean, but that's a reality of it. They're putting our American people and the world, entire world people's lives at stake by playing Russian roulette with a nuclear nation. Russia has been trying to be patient. Russia was criticized by Russian people for moving its red lines, because Russia keeps saying, if you do this, we're going to strike your decision-making centers. While the West does this, Zelensky does this, but Russia doesn't strike. So Russia has been sort of avoiding escalation, at least that's what it appears to be. But the West wants more escalation. Remember 2 rockets that fell, or 1 rocket, later they said there was 1, first they said there were 2 that fell on Poland about a month ago, and Zelensky said, oh, those rockets were Russian rockets, let's invade Russia. Entire Poland, Baltic republics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Yes, let's call for Article 5. Let's go attack Russia. We need to do it now. Zelensky like, yeah, attack Russia. What? Are you guys like insane? You want to attack a country with 140 million people with nuclear weapons, submarines, hypersonic missiles? Hello, Latvia. Do you guys know there is 2 million people that live in the entire country of Latvia? I think it's 2 million, like 1.8 million. Of course, not all of them are men capable to go fight. I'm thinking, Latvia, are you suicidal? But apparently they are. The country of 1.8 million people who, I don't know what percentage would that be of a capable male population to be able to go into combat, wants to call a fight and throw a fight with a Russian bear of 140 million, nuclear weapons, hypersonic missiles, you name it. Really? So, yeah, it is insanity of the Western politicians. So there's lots of people. Oh, let me see. What do I have this comment? Can you say in that awesome accent, I want you to die, Mr. Bond? Okay, Tom Casey, you're being cute, I see. Okay, how do you say that? I want you to die, Mr. Bond. Is that what you would like me to say? I want you to die, Mr. Bond. I don't know. I haven't watched the movie. Maybe I should go practice before I say it. We have Bob here, Bob Carpenter. The Zelensky government shut down one of their own top minister in helicopter over Kiev and killed him, and the crew and some very young school children. Exactly, Bob Carpenter, exactly. Couple of days ago, and just before Ramstein, the meeting, a NATO meeting, when they decide on how many weapons to give to Ukraine. Very good point, Bob. Did you guys notice how there was news all over that Ukrainian helicopter crashed and it killed their interior minister and like 9 other top officials, the deputy of interior minister? And the problem is that they don't really, quote unquote, know what happens. However they do it, some of them say pilot error, some think maybe it's anti-missile defense. But the truth is, the very guy, Aristovich, remember the guy that I played him in the beginning? This guy here, he is the one who was
Я сейчас
saying,
неофициальное лицо уже. Могу...
and he was the one who basically had to resign because he said that Ukrainian anti-missile defense systems basically shoot things right in civilian areas. And they fell on civilian home and killed Ukrainian civilians.
Просто так было.
With the helicopter, that's very suspicious that all the top interior ministers and officials died. Very suspicious. Lots of Ukrainian people are suspicious. Russians are suspicious. So, yeah, and they had this helicopter fall on the kindergarten and killed a lot of children. And that happens before Rammstein. I'm telling you guys, every time they have this Rammstein meeting, I always know that some kind of big tragedy is going to be afoot. The first time before Rammstein, they had Bucha massacre, remember? Then they had Kramatorsk missile. Then they had some other bodies on the streets and children dying. So every time there is a Rammstein meeting about weapons, it so happens that there is some major tragedy with lots of civilian death happens in Ukraine. Whether it's coincidence or who knows, but I am always now kind of concerned about when they meet for this Rammstein, because some big tragedy with lots of children and deaths and civilian deaths happens in Ukraine just ahead of that meeting. And then Zelensky comes out and says, you see, Russia is killing us. We need more weapons. I don't know if it ties together or if it's just coincidental, but yeah, almost too many times to be a coincidence, guys. We have, will Arestovich survive? DKCB. Arestovich is this guy. Everybody remembers, right? Arestovich, this guy. He definitely will survive. Some people actually say that, who knows, maybe he resigned to start his own political career. Some people, even in Ukraine, in Western countries, are starting to see, they think that the West is phasing Zelensky out. If you see in Davos recently, Mrs. Zelensky, she had a lot of publicity because she delivered this peace plan to the Davos elites. And she was saying that how, you know, Russia needs to do this and we will do this. So some people think that for some reason they are promoting Zelensky's wife now. Maybe they are trying to put some stakes on her. Some people say it's going to be Zaluzhny, a commander-in-chief of Ukraine, if they will phase Zelensky out, because Zaluzhny has been gracing a lot of magazine covers, like Time magazine, other magazine covers in the West. And Zaluzhny is the commander-in-chief that some people believe the West may sort of, quote unquote, put in Zelensky's place after Zelensky's been, what is it? Yeah, phased out, discontinued, right? And some, his brand will be discontinued. But some people think that maybe, just maybe, it will be Arestovich, this guy who may be the next personality that will be in the spotlight. And who knows, maybe he will create the political party or become more visible, because he is uber popular. He's like #2 person in Ukraine, everybody knows. He also has military academy degrees and he has a psychology degree. So when he spoke to Ukrainian people every day about what's happening at the front line, he would always spoke in this very whispery, wispy voice, saying, I think it will be good. I think we're going to be doing this. Everything will be fine. So lots of people got to like his presentation and how he, and he considers himself a savior, because he feels that his manner of delivery and how he tries to calm Ukrainians and say everything will be fine sort of saves them from heart attacks. But as you saw the video I showed earlier, in this video, he actually says that he's not so convinced anymore in Ukraine's victory based on the statement of Polish President Duda, who recently came out and said that if there is going to be more action in a coming month, that maybe Ukraine will not survive. So now he is questioning. He says, now that I resigned from official position of Zelensky advisor, I can speak what I think. And he says, is that going to be our victory? Are we that sure that we will have a victory? He's saying that he's not really as convinced anymore, especially in the light of Polish President Duda coming out and saying that there may not be Ukraine. And Aristovich said, I wonder if Duda just said it because he said it, or does Duda actually has some information to back it up? So, yeah, a lot of interesting things. We have Eugene. Thanks for the interview with Scott. I don't miss any interview where he's present. Thank you, Eugene, Doug. Thank you. I'm glad you've seen it. We're going to do some more again. Scott is a wealth of knowledge. I liked listening to him. He always delivers things in a very animated and refreshing manner, unlike listening to our politicians who put you to sleep. Scott always is on point, and he always has an answer, whether people agree with his answers or not, but he always got an answer, an opinion, which I think is very notable to listen to and make your own mind. Of course, we all make our own mind. Bob Carpenter, now this is conspiracy theory. Ever heard of Tartaria and the mud flood? Very interesting. You know, I've heard of Tartaria, but mud flood, I'm not sure. Let me see. Duda is his replacement, says Tom Casey. Yeah, who knows? Maybe they will say, forget Ukraine, we'll just incorporate Ukraine into Poland and make a Duda the president, right? Let me see. When America is finished with the country and they lose like Vietnam, Korea, and Afghanistan, or even if they win like Iraq, and I don't know what to do, they stop talking about them and just move on. Well, yeah, remember, very good point, Bob Carpenter. Remember how many weapons, billions worth of weapons that Biden left in Afghanistan? Billions. Who is going to account for that? And of course, if you guys remember, recently, I think Jimmy Dore made a good special on it. Of course, he's a comedian, so he laughs at some of these things, but it's, you know, he laughs at, but it's pretty serious, and he understands it's pretty serious. So what do we have? We have Pentagon that for the, I think, what is it, third time, cannot account for like, what was it, $2.5 trillion worth of assets? Yeah, Google it up. The Pentagon cannot account for all the money that it gets and how it spends it and the assets that it has. And so when Biden makes this exit from Afghanistan, that botched exit where people jumped and hang on the airplanes trying to exit this country because our troops were leaving and the American citizens were in danger of retaliation, American citizens were told to, you know, adios amigo, you figure it out yourself how you're going to get back to America. I mean, I watched and I read how botched that exit was. And of course, billions of weapons. Biden basically armed Taliban by leaving all the weapons to them. What? So it's insane. Our politicians, there is no accountability. And of course, there is no accountability the same way for money and weapons going to Ukraine. Remember a few months ago, what is it, NBC special, or one of them made a movie called Army in Ukraine, where they said that 70% of weapons do not make it to Ukraine and nobody knows where they go. And of course, immediately politicians and who knows what and media censorship jumped on them and said, you can't show this movie, you can't show this documentary, you have to revise it, you have to change what you say. In other words, they pressured them to switch their position. And instead of saying 70% money doesn't, 70% of weapons do not make it to Ukraine, they only said 30% do not make it to Ukraine. I mean, In other words, nobody knows where the weapons go. Nobody knows where the money to Ukraine goes. The same way, nobody knows what happened with all the assets left in Afghanistan. And I think, what is it, Afghani president, didn't he run away with like $100+ million in his suitcase or something? I don't know, guys. There's just so many events. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me see. Eugene Dog, are you a Russian living in America, or you just have such a name, Elena? In Russia is a lot of people with the name. Sorry for these questions. If they're uncomfortable, then do not answer. Well, Elena is actually a Greek name, in case you didn't know, Eugene. Elena is a Greek name. Lots of Greek women are called Elena. So, yeah, I actually am fluent both in Ukrainian and Russian. I am American citizen, and I ran for United States Congress in 2020. I've been in America for over 20 years. I grew up and I was born in USSR back then, but then in the territory of Ukraine. And Ukraine became an independent state. I finished university, I think, by that time. And then later on, I worked with a lot of foreigners and foreign corporations. I traveled around the world, and gosh, I sat on billion-dollar negotiations, just about every industry you can imagine, with every country in the world you can imagine. I met people from all over. I traveled to London, to other places, negotiations. That's what I did. I've been a liaison between, at that time already, Ukrainian side, after the collapse of Soviet Union, with a lot of foreigners that started to come into Ukraine. Yeah, I have pretty cosmopolitan background, and I'm fluent in quite a few languages, including Ukrainian and Russian. Thanks for asking. But I believe the origins of my name, Elena, is Greek. I think it means light, fair and light. I think that's what the translation is. Thanks for the question. So we have, what state do you run for Senate? I ran for Congress for the House in Michigan, and that's where I live. Okay, guys, if nobody has any more questions, I have so many great videos I've shown you. I've talked to you for a while. Of course, I always have more to say, and I always have more to tell you what's happening. But I just want to say that I give you big hugs. Enjoy your Sunday. I miss you, and I'll see you on my next live. Prepare some good questions, and I will have some good interviews hopefully coming up too. So we'll keep doing our little lives together. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Elena USA Live. And when you subscribe, there is this little bell. Click on it and select all. That way, when I go live, you will be notified. When I post a new video, you will be notified. So subscribe to my YouTube channel and click notification bell. Make sure to click all, so every time I go live, you will be then notified. I see. What is that military exercise with? I am not sure. What is this? A question here. What is the military exercise near Moscow with S-300? Well, Moscow, I actually have a video, but I'm not going to play it. Moscow is already placing anti-missile defense system all over the city. So, yeah, if the West doesn't stop, they really will be they will be pushing us into the some type of nuclear possibly exchange with Russia. Bob Carpenter says, thanks, Elena. Thank you. See you again. Yes. Thank you, guys. You know you're my favorites, right? Did everybody subscribe to my YouTube channel? Well, please do. So I hope to see you. And also, when you subscribe or you watch these lives, if you're watching on the Facebook or on YouTube, click that link, copy it, and send it to your friends. See if we can get more people to come and participate in these lives, and more people to subscribe so we could have more fun every time we have a live. And think about some questions for the next one. And come back and watch some videos that I will be posting and some new upcoming interviews. And hope to see you guys all back here again. Have a great Sunday. Love you all. Big hugs. And thank you for all who has been here on this live chat today. Thanks a lot, guys.